What's up, my chess friends? International Master Sladgie here on lichess with the Panda. Macro Panda, Mr. Coffee. Good to see you guys, Jim, Mr. Slowhand Grind, Mr. Coffee leading the way in bit donations this week. Mr. Coffee's here, Nefedov, one of our oldest and best friends. Acerbate as well. Good to see you guys. So we have the subscriber stream. I'm going to put it out there right now so that everybody reminds me I have a lesson after the stream, and I always have a tendency to forget these because I rarely do evening lessons. So you guys, it's your job, especially if Jim doesn't come. We do have a submission from Jim. Hopefully he'll be along, but do not let me forget that I have I have a lesson after the stream at 8:15. So you guys remember to remind me not to let me forget. I've got quite a few submissions this week. It's going to be pretty busy. Bob. Is that possible that Bob is first? Bob, W.J. Loof, Mule Skinner. No, we've got Bob twice, so that's impossible. How can we have Bob twice? Bob twice. Let me see. There's Bob's sack before Jim. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I had Bob before Bob on the list. So my bad. All right, anyways. I'm sorry. So we got W.J. Loof, Mule Skinner, Bob, Jim, Save a Dog, Astrobate, Slow Hand, Move 11, Uber, PSG, and Somewhat. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we'll get to at least 10 of these. Someone on sound is on the bubble. He's the bubble boy at number 11. PSG Soccer Rooks, a good day for me. You won the Eastern Super Blitz and third in a Daily Blitz. Wow, that's an insane reaction, I wanted to say. Insane result. Great job. Bit of stressful, not stressful, just been a tiring day for me from early on. Luckily I'm not playing. I feel like analyzing is not quite as tough work as actually playing. Denmark Russia 2-2. Are we talking football here, Mule Skinner? I assume. Am I guessing right with that score? It's not table tennis, right? 2-2. Is it finished? Is this like World Cup qualifiers or something? Someone on sound, you're on the bubble. W.J. Loof, Mule Skinner, Bob Sack, Jim, Save a Dog, Astrobate, Slow Hand, Move 11, Uber, PSG, and Somewhat. You are late with your submission. Oh, Mule Skinner's talking about no chess. Oh. I don't know anything. Wait, what in chess? There's European Team Championship? I forget that Russia is... Is it the European Team Championship? Like Russia counts as Europe. Okay. Yeah, that's weird for me that they can play in like the European Championship. I think it's kind of bogus. I mean, these countries like that are sort of distant, like Russia and Israel, are... It's a little borderline, you know, whether they should really be considered part of Europe. But anyway, all right, guys, what's up? Merle Dixon, thanks for resubscribing. So WJ, I think WJ Loof was actually the first submission. I don't know why I've written Bob down on my list, because Bob's submission came later. All right, I played a miniature in the Queen's Gambit Decline that felt really good, but if it's worthy of your channel is yet to be determined. I'd love you to pick it apart. Though I know there's room for improvement. Yeah, there's always room for improvement. So this is a blitz game. Yeah, Bob, I had the feeling maybe you submitted twice, because that's perhaps what confused me. I had you on the list twice, and I guess that's because you did something like submit twice. So good to see you guys. Thanks for subscribing. Merle Dixon, 18 months. All right, we're going to get started. Der Hund against W.J. Loof. So we'll flip the board. Once again, Jim's not here. He's usually the one who reminds me. JCS, what's up? Good to see you. Backup moderator. Back from beyond. Okay, WJ Loof. This is with black. It's a blitz game. Just don't let me forget I have a lesson after the stream, okay, guys? Here I am thinking that Mule Skinner's talking about football. When I see a 2-2 score, it's my default, you know, belief that you're talking about, like, European football. Okay. D4, D5, C4, E6. Not such a good result, you know. I'm not sure. How would you do in football against Russia? Denmark versus Russia. Denmark's got to be a favorite, right? But in chess, it's the other way around. All right, D4, D5, C4, E6, E3. Denmark's probably on the level with like Hungary in European football, right? It's just not that big of a country. How about those nationals? Russia went further than Denmark. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I don't know, Bob. I'm surprised. I mean, the important thing is that the Yankees are out of the competition. You know, I don't really care who wins. I just pretended to be an Astros fan, you know, until they defeated the Yankees. Then my allegiance is completely gone. You know, it doesn't matter anymore. But it is surprising what's happening in the World Series of baseball, because major upset in the making. Anyway, so E3 by white is exceedingly passive. C5. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you should play C5 here. This becomes an interesting question. Like, there's nothing wrong with C5. But actually, for a long time, I wondered that, you know, if white were to play E3 in the Queen's Gambit declined, what, like, is black's best setup? And I'm kind of thinking Mr. Coffee, well, monstrous pitching, yeah, monstrous pitching for everyone, but it's not always good for everyone. Even monsters have bad days, apparently. I wonder, Mr. Coffee, do you think like the Kohli-Koltanowski would be maybe black's best sort of formation here to try to play like knight f6? You could try to play knight f6 and essentially be like white in a Kohli-Koltanowski. Knight f6, maybe bishop d6. That's a funny thing. If you do one of these, bishop d6, like, it's so tempting for white to play c5. Look at this position, you know? I mean, chess is weird. The first World Championship match, Steinitz and Zukertort. Zukertort would die to play c5. Zukertort was like, he's like rolling over in his grave, like reaching out to play c5 as a zombie now, you know? I mean, and there's not a single game where white played c5. Check out these games. 12, 18, 23, 26. Raise your hand if you would play c5. It's the #1 move here. Okay, my Stockfish is only up to move 25, but it's just, it's amazing. Not one player in the Opening Explorer played c5 for white. I still think, I don't really like c5 personally either, but it's, you know, if Zukertort could play it against Steinitz in positions where it was completely irrelevant, you know, I think here with the tempo, it makes a lot more sense. Anyway, that's my suggestion. This move maybe b6 as well. For WJ Loof to play like you were white in a Kohli-Koltanowski, try to set up bishop b7 and bishop d6. I mean, we're gonna try to get the bishop, you know, b6 preempts c5. We'll try to play bishop d6 without allowing c5 and bishop b7 and a6 and all that stuff. Try to be white in a Kohli-Zukertort system. But there's nothing wrong with what he did. I mean, c5, it just transposes to kind of a normal opening. You're not really taking advantage of White's opening. You're transferring from a Queen's Gambit decline to a semi-Tarrasch, which is just a really standard opening now. Knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, you know. And this exchange now is another transposition, and technically it's probably a mistake. Although I've played this move many times, this is technically a mistake because you're freeing that bishop on c1, opening its diagonal. You're basically transposing from the semi-Tarrasch to the Panna-Botvinnik now. So WJ Luke going over your game. You know who was fantastic in these positions? Akiba Rubinstein. 100 years ago, this was like one of the most topical, if not the most topical, it seemed like one of the most topical openings. I mean, in the early 1900s was really when people started to play d4 a lot. And before that, it had been relatively less common, you know. But if you look at Rubinstein's games, I mean, this was such a formative system for both sides. It was so popular. Rubinstein has games from both sides of these positions. So I think it's hard to play the symmetrical, like knight c6, a3, a6. You know, what does White do now? I mean, bishop d3, probably. This is like a line. I mean, what are you supposed to play? cd5. Once I lost with White against Kaidanov. I just don't think it's easy for either side in these symmetrical semi-Tarrasch. So WJ Luke goes into a Panov now, and this move is just disgusting. I would classify this as disgusting. Knight takes d4. That's like the other day we had a new viewer, a pretty good player. I think he's like 2200 on lichess, and he played this move c takes d5, sort of taking the dynamism out of the position. Knight takes d4 is that kind of move. It just takes the dynamism out of the position. Notice that Hikaru played this against Carlsen and beat him. I mean, this is just, dude, you can't play for a win with this with White. Knight takes d4. PGS Sakharuk had a very suspicious performance. Yeah, he was telling us about that, Bob. He said he had, or are you talking about a different tournament? He said he had 2 good tournaments today. John Donaldson has 2 books out on Rubinstein. Are they worth a look? Yeah, they're absolutely they're mandatory books, Percy Hepworth. They're not new though. They're like 20 years old. But I mean, it's timeless. It's just timeless. Yeah, Minyev and Donaldson did the series. It's just must own chess books. If they're still in print, because it was like Inside Chess published it. I don't think they're printing new copies of that. Yeah, it's always a compliment when Bob suspects you. So I think instead of investigating chess players, Bob, you should focus on investigating like political candidates or something instead. You could probably like make a lot more money out of it. What do you think, Bob? Or just become a private detective. You're wasting your time on chess investigations. So knight takes e4. I mean, I can understand like Nakamura playing this because he wants to draw against Carlsen, but this is not a move that a serious player, I think, considers really playing. White is playing black, you know. So bishop e4. This move nearly loses material. Not well planned. You know, on e takes d4, it's a totally standard line. You're playing bishop e4. That's probably the most active. The most active line. This is much more aggressive than playing bishop e7. But here you're unfortunately walking the queen a4 check. So against knight takes d4, you could just play any sort of ordinary move, knight c6 or bishop e7. The only problem with bishop e7 is that you'd really rather put your bishop on d6, you know, so probably you should play knight c6 first, and then plan on playing the bishop to d6. It's like you're basically white in a semi-tarash with colors reversed. You have the white setup, and white has the black setup, the more passive side. So this move first, followed by posting the bishop on d6. Korchnoi Karpov, 1989. All right, here. So this is a blunder. Queen a4. Queen a4 check like wins a pawn, right? Knight c6, bishop c3, bc3. I mean, you could try queen d7. You could try queen d7 here. But presumably it's like pawn takes pawn, bishop b5. Oof. So you just have to take and lose a pawn. Queen takes c6 here, queen d6. I assume that black is just worse. The engine is pointing out you don't even need to take the pawn, because your positional advantage is so big after like bishop a3. I mean, just this move alone is very promising for white, I would think. So, an unfortunate blunder, but white played a3. Ed Formanek against Hulak from 1983. I presume that position happened from a different order of moves, because Ed certainly would have seen queen a4 check, and Hulak certainly wouldn't have allowed queen a4 check. So these games had to have been reached by a different order of moves, the same position. Presumably, like white's last move was knight takes d4. So Ed, never an easy opponent for me. He has a good score. Now, what should you do here? Strategically, black really would like to see the white square bishops traded with something like, I guess, b6 and bishop a6, like a French, and a blockade along the c file. Yeah, what's our saying? Am I drinking alcohol? Aloha, aloha. Friday night. Am I drinking alcohol? I don't know. Tastes like beer. Got beer and coffee. It's basically like a Red Bull. Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, you guys. You caught me. You caught me early. It's Thursday. My bad. I thought it was Friday. Damn it. Queen a5, it's never too late to start the weekend early. WJ Loof, my new saying here for a few months has been queen a5 is always bad. And I think this is another case of, it's a good, yeah, I like the spirit of it. It's aggressive, and you're stopping queen a4 check. I think this move just breaks with principle too much. You just need to get yourself developed. Now, I'm curious what happened here in Formanek against Hulak. Very strong Croatian player. In those days, it was Yugoslavia, but Ed lost with white after c takes d5. I'm wondering what Hulak played here, because do you take with the pawn, the knight, or the queen? Because all three captures look logical. He just took with the queen, and the queen is mobile here. c4, queen g5, interesting game. h4. He just provoked Ed to attack like a wild man, and then went to c5. Interesting game. Anyway, queen a5 seems a little dubious. Bishop d2, maybe not even necessary. Castles, I like that. Now he's going to open this up, and now there's the c4 threat. That's why already our queen is... See, our queen experiment didn't work out. Mule Skinner said small Friday. It's Friday, right? What time is it? Well, in 1 minute, in 2 minutes, it will be Friday in Hungary. Just, you know, and I actually have a residence in Budapest, so we just have to wait 2 minutes and it will be Friday. Yeah, so you end up losing time. It looks like you have to take with the pawn here. You take it with the pawn c4, move the queen, you might as well just go back. White's able to open the position for the two bishops. But I don't think black's position is that bad. I mean, you're still essentially ahead of development. You know, you might even be able to play knight e4. I mean, this isn't that bad. And even queen takes, similar to Hulak, c4, queen g5, or c4. You know, here we don't want to play queen c5 because of this. But this is actually a better version. There is no queen c5 like Hulak had. You probably have to go to like e5 or somewhere like that. So you just blundered. Knight takes d5, c4. Whoops. So he misses c4, basically winning a piece. Very lucky. Lucky. Yeah, you should have lost. This just wins a piece. I mean, knight c3, queen c2. You're getting good reception in this channel, but lagging everywhere else. That's weird. So, I hope my stream is good. Lately, I have some internet issues. Our Wi-Fi is not the best. I will be moving to Hungary, guys, in about a week and a half. So, we have a week and a half of streaming left, and then we're going to be off for a week, and I'll come back around the 10th of November. So between the 2nd and the 9th of November that week, I am not going to be streaming. Did I sell the house? Unfortunately not. No, the house deal fell through. The guy screwed me over, and I'm selling it through a realtor now. But I'm just going to leave it here. You know, he can keep trying to sell it till the cows come home. I can't stay here anymore. I'm going to lose my mind to stay if I have to live in an empty house anymore. Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi, exactly. In Hungary we have Wi-Fi. Bishop e2, queen d8. This looks like an overreaction, but I guess there's no other good square. I mean, the Hulak square doesn't look good. Yeah, you have to get out of there. At least you saw the threat. So queen a5 was a misadventure for black, losing time. Castles, knight c6. I mean, I don't think this engine says it's like dubious. I wouldn't be so harsh on knight c6 though. I don't see why that's such a bad move. Maybe some technical reason. The computer would rather you didn't sacrifice your pawn structure and let that pawn become isolated there. I mean, if we're going to really be purists about this, we'd like to keep the pawn structure the way it is and then pile up pressure against that pawn on c3. Yeah, my house has like incredible echo because there's no furniture in most of the rooms. And it's very creepy. I'm going to be in an empty house for Halloween, you know, it's really bizarre. Anyways, oh, I didn't tell you guys, there was a strange thing today. There was a coyote in the yard, and I went outside, and it was the middle of the day, in the afternoon, around 2 o'clock. And there was this thing, I was like, whoa, why is that dog in my yard? You know, and there's this big dog in my yard. And I'm like, wait a minute, that dog looks like kind of a little bit shaggy, and he doesn't look like he's in really good, you know, condition. But it was a coyote. I realized pretty quickly. It looked very, very large, but not really well groomed. We have coyotes, but I haven't seen any. I hadn't seen any in a very, very long time. Turkeys are not really down with coyotes. So they were not in the same location. Yep. That was the most interesting thing that happened today. All right. So knight c6, not an interesting square, really. The computer is pointing out you can play e5, kick him off the good square, and then play, you know, with a better structure. I mean, here, White has the bishop pair, but he does have an inferior pawn structure. You know, these isolated pawns, they're not the worst isolated pawns in the world, but they're not the best either. They're still isolated pawns. I mean, they're definitely targets, and Black can set up pressure probably down the C and the D files. So I don't see White's bishop's really looking that good here. So this is a slight mistake. Bishop f3. I would play knight e5 now. This is a very strong move. And you're definitely interested in taking out his white square bishop. I mean, his other bishop sucks. You know, this bishop kind of sucks. But the white square bishop is his better bishop. So you don't mind, you know, probably taking that out. Maybe. You did. It's also not mandatory. You could just play, well, now this is attacking this. I guess you're going to have to do something here. I was going to say this. This would involve actually sacrificing a pawn, though. I mean, that's a little bit too much. Sacrificing this pawn on d5 is a little bit over the top. All right, so takes. Now you have great position. Ops-colored bishops, better pawn structure, and good prospects on the white squares, because White's failure to have a white square bishop, I think that Black's, in my opinion, slightly better here. This is a good move. And White should probably try to play c4, c5 and drive your knight away, and then maybe even undouble his pawn. Rook d1. Yeah, I mean, this looks like your issue here. This and this. I would think queen c7 now to get the queen off the file on a quiet half open file, less traffic. It's like bowling, right, Mr. Coffee? Get the queen to a more quiet lane. Less traffic here on the C file. I think this is a safer place to be. But now White had the chance to play c4, and all kinds of bad stuff is going to happen. Bishop e4. That's a serious problem. Like, Black's probably going to nearly lose the exchange. c4, knight e7. You have this. Like, maybe queen e8. I mean, that's about the only move. This doesn't look comfortable. This is a very bad situation here. Welcome to my stream, guys. This is our subscriber stream. I'm taking forever to go over the first game. All right, we're going to have to go faster. I'm sorry. I'm just taking too long. It takes me a while to find the pace here, but I'm going to have to move it along. Rook d1, bishop e7, knight d4, queen e7. This is not bad, but you're setting up bishop e4. White's just too hesitant. Oops. Oh my god. A nice idea, though. Because I expected you to play knight f4. I mean, that's totally kind of normal move. But I'm not sure what's actually happening here. You're probably better there. He probably has to take, and White is slightly worse based on pawn structure here. And this minor piece is excellent. You were creative, though. It's a nice little tactical trick with the double end. He just took, you know. Always check your candy for poison. With Halloween coming around the corner. Don't forget, kids. Kofefe. This is good, Kofefe. Check your candy for poison. Don't forget. Yeah, this is just crazy. He takes and he has to give up a queen. Mate. Mate! Not a good idea. Look before you leap. Okay, so there's a lot of, like you said, WJ Luth, there's a lot of mistakes in that game. Like, positionally, a lot to be taken away from that. Alright, so we are going to try to get through some of these games. Jim, is Jim in the house yet? Because he's the one that always supposed to remind me I have a lesson after the stream. I count on Jim. He always remembers. So now, was it Bob? Were you supposed to do Bob? Mr. Bob? Was this the game, Bob? Thursday analysis? 45 hours ago? Hyper accelerated dragon? The Bob Meister. Is Bob in the house? Is he here? Magnus Polgar. WJ Liv, thanks for the donation. 300 bits. Bob Carlson. I guess this is it. Please delay me. Alright, man. We're gonna do the Mule Skinner then. If we delay Bob. Can anybody tell me why my notification button has a line through it? Because I can't figure it out. That's like a totally new feature. Does anybody know what that means? What does a line through your notification icon mean? Mule Skinner says, I played white in this over the board game. 90 plus 30 last Sunday. Black has a rating around 1450. Do not disturb. But I'm getting messages anyway, I thought. Because I'm streaming? No, I had it when I wasn't streaming. I have no clue what it is. It's just the weirdest thing. Nobody knows what it is. Maybe it's just, does nobody else, none of you guys out there has it? I'm alert free. Oh, is that right? Yeah, I just saw it for the first time today. I guess it's just something they made for me especially. So Mule Skinner is playing a 1450. Wait, that's kind of low rated, man. Alright. It's got to be Mule Skinner is white. We get to see his Grand Prix attack. E4, C5, Knight C3. He plays this really well. I've certainly given him a lot of practice in the G6 lines, but his opponent here plays Knight C6, F4, E6. No, this isn't over the board. This isn't over the board 1450, which traditionally, sounds ridiculous. I mean, in the old days, there was 2200 minimum FIDE ratings. Like my first FIDE rating was in like 1991 and 1992. I don't remember, but there were no men's ratings under 2200 and there are no women's ratings under 2000. So it's still really weird for me to conceptualize that there are 1450 FIDE ratings. I don't know. I guess it's the same thing as a US 1450, more or less. I think the FIDE is still, okay, it's not the same. There's still probably like 175 points variation. Life was much simpler then. So E6 is recommended by Richard Palliser in his book on anti-Sicilians for black, going back like 10 or 11 years ago. One of the only players I've ever seen, authors, this is an IM from England, Palliser, who recommended this. Every Sicilian book I've ever seen has recommended, universally G6 against the closed Sicilian of all kinds. But his opinion was that E6 is particularly good against the Grand Prix attack, So Knight F3, and now black has the choice of several different lines. I think that Palliser particularly likes both D5 and Knight E7. But this is just a mistake. I mean, as far as I know. I think that Knight F6 is kind of dubious. So my inclination would be to play E5, but I'm not a Grand Prix attack player, really. I've played it a few times. I mean, it's almost like white is just begging. I mean, black is just begging for this move. You know, to me, it would seem like a good move. I mean, black is going to play like a Nimzovich. Essentially a kind of Nimzovich Sicilian here after knight d5, ed5. I can't believe this is bad for white. But apparently that's not the best. So it's funny because Muleskinner did what I would have done, which is e5. But that goes to show that I'm not really a kind of standard Grand Prix player. You know, it's very funny. I have a very distinct memory of something that happened 30 years ago. I played in a quad, and it was a quad, and somehow I think it was like Roman Djindjiashvili, me. I feel like I played Roman, or I played adjacent Roman in the same tournament, and he had a game with somebody. It was Leonid Sokolin, who's an IM, a really strong IM. He lives in New York City now, but I remember Roman just absolutely crushing Leonid Sokolin in something like this. It was like bishop e5, and he just like took the pawn on, he just took the knight on c6, and it was terrible for black. Like, he never could get his bishop out. You know, this was one of Roman's like stock tricks. Basically, he would kill the piece. So you just play bishop e5, you just kill the bishop on c. And Muleskinner knows this, because he uses it in other positions. But it looks like this is so rarely played. I didn't know either. Seems to me this is a strong move. I guess knight d4. You have to ask what happens on knight d4. Muleskinner likes this trick anyway. e5. He does this in similar positions. Knight b5, knight b5, knight d5. Interesting. Have you ever tried this? Is Muleskinner here yet? Have you ever tried this approach? It looks like c4, knight f4, and d4. Julian Hodgson. The original, this is like the original Grand Prix attack guys. Mark Hebden and Julian Hodgson back in the late 70s. That's when the Grand Prix attack was essentially created by those guys. 2200 fish. Those fishy masters, Julian Hodgson and Mark Hebden. When the Grand Prix attack was born, essentially. So that, you know, my instinct would have been to do what he did here with e5. But it looks like the truth is that this is actually better. It's interesting. So e5, knight d5, knight d5, ed5. So we just basically have a kind of Nimzovich Sicilian where we've played f4. And I guess f4 isn't that big a deal. You know, the black bishop will control this diagonal. And it's actually hard for white to control the... It is an English pub opening, essentially. No, it's an old English weekend tournament opening is what it is. PSG Soccer Rook. Not a pub opening. It's a weekend Congress opening. Sorry guys, I had something in my eye. Alright, so d4, d6, and now this bishop really annoying here. The ability to come to f5 and g4 as need be. White, it's like white has played f4 in a kind of standard Nimzovich Sicilian line. But f4 doesn't help that much. It does support e5, but it blocks the bishop at c1 at the same time. So surprisingly, white has no real advantage here. I think you have to go back to bishop b5 in the opening. I mean, this is widely known, you know, as it's supposed to be a slight mistake. I mean, obviously white could transpose to an open Sicilian, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It has to be this move. It has to be this move. And yeah, I mean, you could play maybe queen c7, but it's only 2 games here. It just seems a little bit slow. Perhaps this is not that bad for black to try to prevent the doubled pawns. Next time, Mule Skinner, you try bishop b5. All right, let's see what happens. e5, knight d5, take here. c3, and then h6. I'm going big on the lumberjack theme. Now wait a minute. Going big? This is like my favorite old shirt, dude. It's not a lumberjack shirt at all. It's like not lumberjack. All right, but h6 is ridiculous. Wow, what a move. He's afraid of knight g5, I guess. But I mean, that's extremely paranoid to play h6 here. Some lumberjacks are hot. Surgeon Sale against Sveshnikov. So Sveshnikov playing black. And there's a Velimirovich game. Man, that's rough. You got to play against Sveshnikov and Velimirovich. Man, h6, how can you play h6 with black here? Like, oh, it's not important to develop your king or your minor pieces. I'm going to play h6. Who has time for h6 with the black pieces? I mean, I would think either or. Bishop f5. This move controls the center, right? I mean, this is looking very central. Even this. We're just simply developing the king side, right? Bishop e7. Any of the above. It's funny, though, that both of these guys played c takes d4, and that's apparently the best move. I don't really get it, like what the big deal is with c takes d4. Why can't we recapture here? Why is this so bad? You just keep taking, I guess. You keep taking and you put pressure on the d4 pawn. This is a target. And there's no way really to get, like, you know, knight c3 and attack d5 because that knight's already gone. It's funny. I still think that white is probably okay here. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that b4 is a big deal. I mean, you don't really want to do that check necessarily, because oftentimes that's just a good exchange for white. But I don't know. Okay, I mean, black's fine essentially. This is really against all principles. You can't afford to make moves like that in an open position. I mean, it's bad enough in like the Italian game. The guy thinks it's an advanced Caro-Kann. I mean, maybe he mistakenly thought his d6 pawn was on e6 here or something like that, or French. Even in the French, you can't play h6. Who has time for this move? So bishop d3. That move is weird too. I mean, d7. Well, there's no more f5, so this was, I think, a strong move by Mule Skinner to take away the option of bishop f5, which really cast out on h6 essentially. Plus, you got the lever or the pawn sort of avalanche with f5 coming. Definitely bishop d3. I mean, your only issue with bishop d3 is that pawn on d4 will remain protected. You got to watch out for bishop g4, I guess. If I were black, at least I would try that. Maybe bishop g4. Try to create some sort of counterplay. Let me turn this engine off. Okay, this move is like ridiculous. Bishop d7. Castle. Queen c7. The dude is going to castle queenside? You're kidding me. He's playing like he's trying to castle queenside. I mean, how else could you explain these two moves? Bishop d7 and queen c7. It seems like he really literally wants to castle queenside. This is going to be a big problem for black along the F file. Yeah, I'm very surprised by Mule Skinner's decision here to take on d6, but I guess he just wanted to give a check along the E file. I was really not expecting that. I was expecting these pawns to be, you know, our spatial advantage playing a role here. And Mule Skinner just changed his mind and went with a different concept altogether. Yeah, that's the other thing that Aim High Soldier said. There does seem to be a connection between h6 and castles queenside. I agree. I think that that's some part of some kind of convoluted plan by black to keep the knight off of g5. So it's all connected. Like, I think I'm going to castle queenside, h6, bishop d7, queen c7, castle queenside. It's kind of nuts, you know. He should have just like played normal chess here, and like bishop f5 right away, bishop e7, castle kingside, with a safer position, or just exchange pawns like Sveshnikov. So this is just far too slow. But white plays this, giving up your strong pawn on e5. Is it worth it, Mule Skinner? This is an over-the-board game, yeah. Against the 1450, is it worth it to give up your strong pawn on e5 just for a little measly check on the e file? He doesn't even check. He played this. Wow. I thought the whole point was to check. Queen e2, queen e1, or rook e1. I don't know. Let's see what the engine thinks. Queen e2 check, or queen e1 check. Black can play knight e7. So he was foregoing it all together and just played knight e5. Nimzovich. Mulevich. Mule Skinnerovich. Obviously, this is a strong square, you know. It's almost impossible to get rid of the knight. It's impossible. I mean, f6 is suicidal. If you take, you get rolled. But the one flaw is this d4 pawn. What's happening here? I mean, it's actually not clear. If black can try to take this pawn on d4, you know, he can try to steal it. Maybe he could still castle kingside. You know, it's not that crazy. But let's see what happens. So he plays knight e5, bishop takes. Sorry, knight e5, bishop e5. Yeah, now white can recapture either way. I guess with the d pawn though, I don't want to lose my d4 pawn. Yeah, these pawns look ominous here. If I'm black now, maybe queen c8. Is that already? It's already too late to stop f5. Okay, maybe the best way to stop f5 is just to keep pressure on e5. Actually. There's the plan. Castles queenside. Nimzovich. Mule Skinner's been studying Nimzovich. What? Okay. I'm sorry. Well, you can't take. Well, can you take with the knight actually? Because there's nothing on the c file. Knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook c1, bishop c6. Okay, black's in trouble. I mean, he's definitely in trouble. Queen a4. This is probably very serious danger. But clearly he can take with the pawn, you know. White is just clearly better. Bishop d2, blockaded, two bishops, you know, spraying both sides of the board like automatic weapons. We got rook c1, b4, b5. advantage with a strong pawn on e5. Okay, this is just good for white. But still, it's better than losing a pawn. Instead, black just insanely doesn't capture and allows d5. Which is basically like resigning. That's just essentially resigning. Gruesome, gruesome. I think you could afford to sack an exchange here if need be. White's advantage is so great, you could just give him this rook. I mean, it would be terrible for black either way. You don't even need to move your rook. Computer's suggesting a3, but I think in general you could just sacrifice that rook on f1. Your position is so big. And then bishop c6. Okay, that's not a bad idea to trade off the powerful bishop, but this pawn looks pretty weak. Now knight has nowhere to go. Guarding c5. The old double attack. Whoops. All right, plus 22.2. Now, if I stop the game here next week, you'll be like, no, you didn't analyze the game all the way to the last move. The reason why I submitted the game was this last move. But at this point, he's like up a rook in this position. So I don't see what it can possibly be after this. Some sort of stalemate. Mr. Slow. Well, Bob's on hold. We've got Jim, Save a Dog, Astrobate, and then you. So this can't possibly be interesting anymore. He just cleans it up with that cute little temporary sacrifice and resigns. Okay, so instructive. Bob's ready now. You know, it's funny though. I would have reacted the same way as Muleskinner, playing it like a Nimzovich with the early e5. And it turns out that bishop b5 is considered better. So Magnus Polgar. I like that. That's funny. Bob versus Magnus Polgar. All right, Bob's white, and the black played g6, which is a move I played. This is a move I've played against Bob myself numerous times. So now he's had good, a good amount of practice in this particular setup. So I think that Bob should be well prepared for this. Actually, bishop c4 is quite a good system. It's funny because it's actually a really bad system in most setups. I think, here it's like there were games where Astrobate actually, I think, originally been playing it even on move 2, Some people even play it on move 2. I mean, it just seems inappropriate. But I mean, when black plays g6, then bishop c4 it goes from being like kind of lame closed Sicilian to a really legitimate move against g6. Now, I screwed this up the same way that this guy did against Bob once in a simul. I wasn't thinking about my move order, and I played knight c6. It's more essential for black to develop the king side, the decelerated dragon. Essential. Thanks, Warnaki, for the donation, 250 bits. By the way, Mr. Slowhand donated 1,000 bits. He's up to 1,500. I don't know if I said thank you, but we'll say it again. Mr. Slowhand, 1,000 bit donation. Warnaki 250. Thank you guys. I'm just trying to get through all the games because we've got 10 or 11 games to go through. So I'm not going to slow down too much. But it's more essential for black to develop the king side first. Knight c6 isn't so good because, as Bob showed, another game against me and other players, if your knight gets hit by d4, d5, you're in a lot of trouble. So what white can adapt now is what Bob did. It's essentially a hybrid between the closed Sicilian and the c3 Sicilian. The knight is always bad on c6 if it's getting rolled by d4, d5. That's why this is a bad move order. And I had that previous game against Bob where I brainlessly did the same thing. So now black has to be really, really careful. I guess bishop g7, d4, cd4, cd4, d6. Bishop g7, d4. This is exactly what happened. cd4, cd4, d6. So we had the exact same game with Bob like a month ago. I think the exact same position where Bob allowed knight takes e4 later. So we have castles, knight f6, knight c3. Oh no. Didn't we analyze this before? You played g6 but delay bishop g7. Oh. No, you needed to get that in. I understand that this game is recent, Bob. What I'm saying is, like, we analyzed this position before. Because you had a game with me where it was the same thing. But black can play knight takes e4 in some positions. You know, so this is the question that becomes relevant. Bob doesn't know anything about positions. It's a new game for him every time. At least that keeps it interesting, Bob. Amy's getting a phone from the Jenny Stewart Medical Center now. 1-800-280-0118. No, I'm sorry, Jenny Stewart Medical Center. I'm not going to answer. But I'm going to block your number from ever calling me again. All right, bye-bye. Goodbye. Goodbye, Jenny. So, all right. Anyway, the Jenny Stewart Medical Center, right. Knight takes e4. So, what's happening here, Bob? Did you consider this? Does queen b3 do damage now? That looks like a problem. I guess you could play knight takes c3 and allow bishop takes f7 check. It doesn't look particularly healthy. No, PSG soccer rook. That's the best that black can do, but it's not that great. The best that black can do is like bishop g7, e6. These positions aren't that great. I've had both captures, like cd4, d5. This isn't too bad. It's like about equal. But apparently like this is considered slightly better for white. This was played against me by Vida Albert, the brother of Grandmaster Levente Vida. And somehow I won with black, I think, in this position. But the score is like ridiculously in like white's favor. I don't know. It may not be that bad. Why is 94? Why is 94 not a good move? Well, it's particularly good. I mean, you know, it's particularly good after bishop g5. The question is, can he play it a move earlier here? I mean, I'm thinking this is what I played in a previous game. Bishop f7, king f7, knight e4. d5, knight 8, g5 check, king g8. It's like a Peart's theme. But I think this needs to be double checked. It needs to be double checked with kind of deep analysis of the position. You know, I don't know. Is Is 94 too early? I mean, but clearly Bob's next move is an error. I thought that bishop e3 was played. I thought this was the game, but it's not. That's really weird. Very strange. There was a very similar game where Godena was white, the Italian grandmaster, and he had played bishop b3. I thought it was this exact position. So h3, knight e4. I mean, this has got to be good for black. This has just got to be good for black. It's unbelievable, like the Pomniachi, Belikov. Neither of those guys play knight to c4. I mean, this move just equalizes at least immediately. Jerzy Slabby. Jerzy Slabby. Ariane Tari was only 2200. That's really weird. I mean, I had this position before. Castles, and now what are you going to do? So Bob plays bishop g5. There is no other good move. Huh. It looks like you actually have to play this. It feels like bishop e2 is literally white's best move. Just going back to avoid the fork and also sidestep bishop g4. Unless you want to play d5. For me, this is just kind of a little bit weird, but maybe it's not bad. If black has to go back here or over here, then perhaps white has an advantage. I mean, clearly you don't really want, you know, your knight on a5. Shapashnikov, Hasagatin. White has some sort of advantage here. Definitely a position that someone on sound would like. PSG Sakuruk, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. If having the ideal pawn center for white is crap, then I don't know what the object of chess is. I mean, it's like, how can white not be better in this position? Like, what more can you possibly ask for with white except for like the ideal pawn center? I mean, this is a great position. You know, there's really no counterplay for black. I think this is just not good for black. You know, I don't know. Maybe this suggestion of d5 by the computer here would be the best try. This has not been tried, but this is probably the best try. The only active way. He has to go like that. That's seriously the only try. There's a Wojtkiewicz game from 2001. Yeah, you got to do that because nothing else would work. It would have to be d5. d5, e5, knight e4. All right. But anyway, Bob played bishop g5, which just invites knight takes e4. And black just has a good game. Trades pieces, has a better pawn structure. This is just perfect. And then bishop takes d5. I don't know. You know, maybe you should play this and give him this pawn. Knight d4, knight d4, bishop d4, bishop e7, bishop f2, and black's pawn up. But bishop g5 just asks for it. This move doesn't really achieve anything for you, Bob. Just sets you up for this fork. So now black just has the two bishops and a better pawn structure. Okay, knight c3. I guess if you can get in d5, you have something. I don't know where the queen should go. Maybe there to f5. I'm not thinking... I guess he's trying to protect his e7 pawn, actually. Does Bob have something here? This looks like it's computer approved. d5, bishop d5. This is the best move according to the engine. Suspicious, Bob. I think we should start an investigation into Bob's computer-assisted play. He just happened to find the best variation, according to the engine. All right, let's continue. Very, very suspicious, Bob. So in exchange for the pawn structure and the bishop pair, you have the ability to push d5, which is going to weaken e7. And make sure that white has enough counterplay to be okay. This is very awkward for him to have to play the queen to d7 to protect that. Correct, Bob. So white is okay after everything's said and done. Knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5. This bishop is not too proud. Very computery, Bob. And now bishop f6. Yeah, I mean this is this sort of bizarre move for black. You know, black does not really want to trade the bishop pair at this point. Black would like to keep the bishops on the board. So this is a concession. Now Bob has a passed pawn. Black has doubled pawns. This is obviously a huge threat of knight e4 and f6. So I'm thinking like just d6, threatening rook e8, threatening knight d5 in some positions. You have a host of good moves. Queen d4, d6, knight e4. But this move for me is kind of weird. Like rook c1, it's not a weird move in itself, but it seems like a quiet move in this situation. Like there's nothing really happening. It's nice that you have an open file there, but that's not where the action is right now. You know, the action is on this file, this fork at e4 on f6. So you're just kind of making this like ordinary move now with rook c1. Yeah, like Jim says, Jim, don't let me forget I have a lesson after the stream. Other moves of priority. Not priority, Bob. Stop trying to play like Botvinnik. A6, H4. Oh my god, yeah, this move is a horror show. Wow. I mean, I have the Ponda, the H4 Ponda, which you guys can see here. But I mean, without a rook behind it, you know, and being castled on the king's side, I think that H4 is highly suspicious. Is that a computer move? The H4 Ponda? Is this the engine move, H4, Bob? I mean, I like Bob's idea of playing like H6, Queen D4, and Queen G7 mate. But I mean, that's something you typically would do if you were playing with a rook on H1, probably. You like A5 in every position, Warnaki. There's so many direct moves for white. This, you know, H4, it's not even relevant here. This is the biggest problem with it right there. I didn't like this, hitting H4, trading queens. Now Bob found F6. So Bob has an advantage despite his H4. Yeah, this would obviously be a lot more dangerous, Bob, if the queens were on the board here. If you played this right away, like, what is he doing? You can see this is almost winning by force. Sorry, Queen D3, Queen here. This is a disaster. Queen F5. I mean, your pawn is free range. At the minimum, you have that, right? Maybe threatening like Rook C5. Ouch. This has got to be winning for white. It just looks gruesome. Very, very strong for white. You don't really want to let him trade queens. Now he's almost alive. Okay, Bob stopped using the engine when he played h4. I think that's what happened. He turned the engine off right before h4. f3, bishop f5, this move. Yeah, well, we already lost a lot of our advantage. But I don't think you should let him maybe trade the bishop for the knight, because your knight, it has the ability to go in here now. That looks really kind of dangerous. I mean, imagine tripled pawns if you could take here. Plus you're threatening b7. I don't know that that's a threat, but we could back it up with rook c7. I think you're still crushing, even here. Big advantage. So this move is slow. Stopping knight d6. Black should also consider just taking the knight, you know, probably. Probably not as good though, because you could take with the rook and try to get the rook on the 7th, I guess. Even this isn't clear, like rook takes e4, rook e8. I mean, I don't know. Is Black lost? Black is worse. I don't think he's lost though. Rook on the 7th is possible. Yeah, the rook c3, rook f3 was an idea before. In that other line with the queens on the board, of course. But I'm just thinking about this endgame now. I don't know if that Bob should let him trade the bishop for the knight, because the knight is kind of a wild card here. That bishop is always a problem. Yeah, this is not a good square, Bob. This is not a good square. Maybe c5. I guess he's just going to play b6. I mean, the truth is that it's not that easy anymore. I mean, I don't think that white's advantage is that big. It's plus 0.5 according to the engine. But I'm not crazy about this. Yeah, you got nothing there. There's nothing there. Here, Bob's smelting. That didn't help you. You're just helping Black. I wonder if he should take with the h-pawn, maybe, to keep better control of e6. I'm not sure if Black should undouble the pawns here or not. Okay. Take, rook takes, rook takes. Dude, what about your king? But there is a problem now. I mean, there's this, and this, and this. So Bob still has something here. And that's it. Now there's just a blockade and this pawn is gone. You missed rook d6 with a slight advantage. Here, 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 here. And so the end game. Now, yeah, I mean, white has to be a little bit careful that you're not worse now. This bishop, Black has a pawn majority on the king side, with the bishop on the board, pawns on both sides of the board. Pawn was strong till it was gone. Yeah, I agree. I mean, did Bob have to play like d6 or whatever, d7? Did you have to push the pawn to the 7th rank here? I prefer it on a dark square where it's harder to attack it. You know, I think Bob should just centralize his king maybe with like king f2. I would keep the pawn on d6, I agree. You know, you don't really want to... You don't necessarily want to trade it for another pawn. Alright, anyway guys, got to move along here. d7, we lose the pawn back, trade it. So this endgame now, the black king is going to be pretty powerful. This is a strong move. And the threat of invading down here. I mean, what if you play a king here? He's going to start advancing his pawns on the other side. Black has winning chances. And Bob's pawns are fixed on the white squares, F2 and, sorry, F3 and G2. I mean, I like the principle of putting your pawns in dark squares, Bob, but it's like too much of a major problem here. He actually misses King C4, which looks extremely strong to me. Good principle, Bob, again, but this invasion is too problematic for you. He misses it again. I mean, this is an extremely big deal. How are you gonna protect that pawn? Not easy. And then what? So if black comes in here, this is just weak. You know, there's no reason for black to bring the king. I mean, if you're going to put the king anywhere, put it on d5. This has got to be better. At least on d5. It's better than that. The best is c4. I think you should consider putting your king on d4, Bob. King position is paramount in the endgame. You can play b4 anytime you want, you know, but you really need, you don't get an opportunity to put your king on d4 every day in this position. He screwed up letting you go there. And again, black could walk up with the king. At least threaten to walk up the king, you know. You probably have to play like a4, a5 and just trade your pawn, lose it, and then try to draw with all the pawns on the same side or something. This is a horrible move. I don't think he wants his pawn on a white square, really, you know. It'd be better to keep it on the dark square. Here. I don't like b5. It's okay for a draw from black's perspective, I think, but he's not in danger of losing, but you just don't want to put the pawns. It looked like he understood that he put his pawns on dark squares when he played h6 and f6. Yeah, now there's danger of a4, a5. Obviously, this wouldn't be an issue if there was a pawn on b6. The most important reason not to play b5 is the fact this knight has a good outpost now. Yeah, now this retreat, again, I think that black should just draw here, like king d6. This is passive. What happens if the king starts coming up? I guess black's hoping that he gets a pawn down here. Maybe he can lure you out of position. Still, I don't know that white can win. This is dangerous. Very sharp situation. This is a terrible move. Bishop's at a distance like rooks, so he blundered with bishop c4. If bishop f1 and you try to take this pawn, I don't know what's going on after like king g4. I mean, it's like this pawn's coming down, this pawn's coming down. I would think the bishop would be better than the knight here. So he just made a horrible blunder. I mean, this allows not that move, but a4. Probably even stronger. And this way he just lost the tempo. If his bishop's on f1, he can play king g4 now. This just flat out loses a move. And now Bob's queening first. So just totally miscalculating. Just white's just winning. But at endgame, black butchered the endgame. It was an endgame horror show. Good read, Bob. Bob saw it all in advance. Get your king over there, buddy. Get your king over there. Oops. You probably could take this pawn here. I would think about eating that, but it's all right. This is fine. You got another one where that came from. Yeah, that was pretty touch and go endgame there, Bob. But endgames are not easy. It takes a lot of experience. All right, it's over. So, next game. All right, next game. We got... Thanks, guys, for your support, by the way. Supporting the stream with subscriptions and donations. Also, check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. We've got Bob, Jim. Got quite a few games left. Jim Bob. Jim, don't forget to remind me about my lesson. I rely on you like my alarm clock. Jim's up next. Where did it go? Does anybody know about that alarm thing again? Did anybody tell? Man, I've got a submission here from Naj Papa 2 hours ago. I don't even think I put Naj Papa in the list. So he came after Mr. Slowhand. Naj Papa. I mean, I must have been looking. I'm looking at the old ones now. Okay, I'm confused. I got to get back up to where we were here. All right, we need to clear out the messages. Jim's really late. That's strange. I had you after Bob, Jim. I'm getting confused, guys. I think it's my message. Something's up with my messages. Why are my messages so screwed up? I've got that notification there. You have too many messages or something? Where's Jim? Recent simul, kind of weird game, Rapid Time Control against Serbian FM. Maybe I have too many messages or something, and that's why I had that cross out over my notifications. Maybe I need to delete some or something. It's like my mailbox is full. Is that a way of telling me that my mailbox is full? All right. So Jim is up here against Kolovich. No, I don't know who this guy is. I knew a Kolovich. I thought it was like a GM, though. All right, Jim is black. D4, knight f6, knight c3. Well, that's funny. Jim, isn't this your games with the other guy? So the notification crossout happened today on you too. Did yours go away? Because I have no idea what it is. The long time control player. This is the same thing you had against that other guy. Classy moves or whatever. Yeah, it looks like I don't understand why I'm the only person who's getting this, but PSG Rook has it too. Okay. It's not the Chigorin, it's just the... I don't know. It's funny that Jim faced this against another opponent, against classy moves, yeah. Funny that he would get that again. So, I've been playing c5 here. I had a game the other day. This, c5, e3, cd, ed, and a6 I've been playing. I had this exact game the other day. Knight f3, bishop g4. Who was that against? Do you guys remember? Who I played this against? Maybe in our tournament on Tuesday, it was against you. Okay. So that's one line. A lot of people play c6. I mean, I guess it's okay if you're a Slav player. But it does feel kind of passive. I mean, oftentimes I'll get this where people will play, you know, bishop f4 and I'll play g6. And then they play knight c3 and then I play d5. But that's slightly different where I'm committed to playing g6. You know, this knight c3 gives black more options. So d5, bishop f4. Jim just played a6. Now, let's look at a6 seriously. Carlsen versus Caruana, Carlsen versus Nakamura, but how is a6, how is our queen side gonna work exactly? Are we gonna play like e6 and c5, or I guess that's my question, like how is a6 really gonna work out here for black? It just feels a little too extreme. Now the engine, look at this. Stockfish is claiming an advantage for black after this. Yeah, I do feel the same a little bit. Aim high, soldier. Yeah, it obviously stops knight b5. Man, but it feels really extreme. I'm surprised it's that good, that it's like the best choice for black. I mean, obviously, you know, we'll probably follow up with e6, but we want to get the bishop outside the pawn chain. Do you want to try to play for c? Do you still want to try to play for c5? This is kind of weird. So now e3, and you played c5. So this is Carlsen So, and there's some other top games. There really isn't another move for white, though, is there? I mean, knight f3, I guess. If knight f3, we'd have other options, like even bishop g4, probably. Yubava. Or bishop f5, for that matter. It is nice to cut out the knight b5. So e3, c5, okay. So the question becomes a6, you know, how much a waste of time is this move, essentially? It's like playing a3 against the Chigorin. You guys mentioned the Chigorin before. You know, now we're like white. It's like we're white in the Chigorin playing a3. Except we're a tempo down. So the best move according to the database is d takes c5. Carlsen, Nakamura, Stefanova, and Popov. Huh. I mean, this isn't the best move in the world, a6. But it's doing some things. Now this move. So now we have the ability to play bishop g4 anytime we want. Yeah. Yeah, we never want that to happen, to have our knight get sent to a6. So at this point, black played e6. But I feel like that's kind of strange, you know. I don't see why Jim needs to block in his bishop on c8 in this position. So this would be sort of automatic move. And I don't have any issues with trading my bishop on f3 in a structure like this, in a closed game. I think it's perfectly okay. It's not forced. You could try something funky with bishop h5, but I think that black is solid here. Very solid. See what the engine thinks. Computer doesn't really like giving up bishops for knights, you know, so it's going to be a little angry about me playing bishop g4 takes f3. All right, but it's playable. So Jim blocks in his bishop. He doesn't mind. I'm concerned about that, you know, piece. This is following theory, though. There's a bunch of games. Wow. Jim has studied his Jabava. Yubava or Jabava, I never know. Yubava, Carlsen, Rapport, Vichugov, Wang Hao, another game. They like this stuff. I mean, there is the possibility of playing like b5. I guess you could just expand on the queen side here. So he takes. That gives up the center. You know, that's got to be good for us. I think this has got to be good for us. In principle, bishop takes. Bishop d3. Now it's like a Rapport for white. Rapport would put his knight on a2 or something. That's the typical Rapport stratagem. Try to maneuver his knight to a2 somehow. Allow d4 so he can play knight a2 and then use the knight on a2 to undermine black's center with knight b4 maneuver. You know, it's what? All right, not a conventional style player, Rapport. Anyway. Anyways, bishop d3. White's setup is a little bit like it's like a Queen's Gambit accepted with the bishop outside this the structure. Right, I mean, we're going to play e4 with white at some point. He doesn't have the Rockport square. a3. Okay, so what do we do now? We're basically like white in a Queen's Gambit accepted type of structure. I mean, classically, the thing to do would be, I guess, to keep the tension. You can also push. This is a tough decision, but you decided to take. Knight takes e4, and then you played knight takes e4. So there's a game with bishop e7. Black is going to be worse here. I mean, it just looks like if the queens get exchanged, we're looking at a situation where the d file is completely under white's control. So knight e4, bishop e4. And you didn't plan on trading queens, so you played queen b6. With queen b6 now, you can play rook d8. It's almost like a Sicilian. This is interesting. You're basically doing a Sicilian type of thing. Queen b6, rook d8, and then bishop d7 and bishop e8. Because there doesn't seem to be any way you can play e5. You have to get, you see that problem piece, right? Your problem piece. This happens in the classical Sicilian sometimes. If you cannot play e5 because of just white's control of e5, essentially, right? And you can't play b5, this makes sense. You gotta be careful there's not some kind of Greek gift here, Jim. It doesn't work because he's Greek, okay? You can't play the Greek gift against a Greek. Yeah, I mean, that's the one problem, that this might actually work. Bishop h7, king h7, knight g5 check. And if you go back to g8, it looks like queen h5 is truly problematic. So you have to go out to g6. I don't see anything better. I mean, it looks like this is forced. So the point is, if queen g4, f5, queen g3... Actually, he's got several different moves. He's got queen g4, queen h4, queen g4, queen h3. There's also this check, so it's the same difference if you play queen g4, f5, queen h3, or queen d3, f5, queen h3. No, I'm not a computer, so I mean, I'm aware that this queen g3 is a move too. The engine claims this is the best try. I mean, obviously the king could walk to f6. No, so what's happening on king f6? Man, you're a piece up, but you have no pieces. That's rough. You know, at the end of the day, Jim, you have to ask yourself, do ancient aliens really exist? But seriously, life would be so much easier if our bishop went out to g4, wouldn't it? It would be much easier if that piece wasn't blocked in. According to the computer, white has compensation for the sacrifice piece with rook e1, but this is a little bit beyond my. This is a little bit beyond my. Well, I don't think e6 is terrible, but I think you just need to. You need to realize the. You just need to realize the limitations of your position. When you play e6, like look at the strong players who played e6. I mean, Carlsen, Vichugov, Wang Hao, all these guys are very strong players. But they realize the limitations of their position. They know that this piece is a problem piece. You just got to keep it in mind going forward. The problem with my suggestion is that it simplifies a lot. You know, bishop g4, h3. I mean, this is limiting because you trade pieces. You know, so there's... It's like a safe approach, but there's less chance of winning maybe for black. You know, you equalize, but you don't have as complicated a game. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. Queen h3. Man. So this is an FM playing white. He's obviously a positional player. Oh man. All right. So rook d8, e5. Yeah, he also has this. Was there a plan on bishop there? Do you have f4 or something weird? Excuse me. Queen g3, e5. Bishop c7 was threatened. This is a crazy game. Wow. So this apparently is a mistake. I mean, I have no idea what's going on here. I think with white, I would have been happy with perpetual, and with black, I would have been terrified. in this time control, you know, fairly fast time control. All right, we'll just ignore this moronic guy. 96 here, king f7. Knight d8, rook d8, bishop takes e5. And it just looks like he's melted down. Now all of a sudden you're just up 2 bishops for a rook. 2 bishops and a knight for a rook. What is going on? Knight e5, queen e5. You have 2 bishops for a rook. That's correct. Yes. 2 bishops for a rook. So it's approximately equal. It's fortunate that you got to this position. This is like really aggressive, man. I mean, I think you should be like guarding your king. Bishop e5. Leaving f5 unprotected. That's mental. Jim doesn't care about f5. He's just like going for the guy like here. Okay, he's hoping to get bishop f2 check. No, this is just a crazy move. I would not leave my f5 pawn hanging. So actually, this is funny. He could take on c5, but after bishop takes f1, excuse me, after bishop takes f1, there's mate at d1. That's a cute line. I mean, here, so it's a sort of trap. And then again, it's just like entirely unclear now. I offer a draw with both sides. It's just it's got to be perpetual. I know that Jim doesn't like draws. We've got to be rational here. You know, this is a draw for both sides. All right, what's up next? So running out of time. We have about 45 minutes left. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. We got to start moving. Man, this guy is trolling me. All right, please stop trolling, troll. Save a dog, acerbate. We got save a dog. Save a dog. Where is it? Coach Something with my messages seem like they're out of order. There it is. You think after like declining someone's challenge for 2 times, they would like get the message, but it's really amazing how silly some people are. Okay, Thursday game submission, save a dog. I have to run, guys, for a minute. I'll be right back. Does anybody understand, like, if you block someone on lichess, the sense that they could send you a message after that? Like, what exactly is the point of blocking someone on lichess if they could send you messages? Not quite certain that I understand the concept. All right, Save Dog versus Elliot S. Save Dog, the total opening shift to d4. Is that what's going on here? You stopped playing the English altogether and you're switching to d4? You've been doing that against me. It's a natural sort of progression, I think. That's what I did. I started with c4 and then started playing d4. If you block someone, they can't play or message you unless you get paired in a tournament arena. You can't control the things in tournament arenas, yeah. That annoys me that people can like fill up my tournament lobbies with messages. But you'd think like they wouldn't be able to message me. I blocked the guy and he still sent me a message, which is really weird. Don't understand how that works. Knight f3, b6, knight c3. Yeah, I mean, so what's the deal with like knight c3 here? Like most people who play knight f3 aren't going to play knight c3 now. I mean, this is kind of a fairly rare move order. I think Alexander Goldine did this against me. You like this move. I mean, typically, like most people, either allow the Nimzo or they don't. You know, so it's kind of very specific move order here for white to play knight f3 and then suddenly change tack and play knight c3 and allow the Nimzo. You know, I like to play this for black. Do I think g3 is better? Yeah, I mean g3 is the best move for white, probably hands down. I mean, you can also play a3. You know, a la Jim. Fundamental basis for Jim's last game, like a3. Petrosian system is good. I like bishop f4, but it's not a really reliable line though. Yeah, I mean it's really like g3 is the best. But I mean there's nothing wrong with knight c3. It's just that it's, yeah. There are certain transpositional reasons to maybe play this. Okay, bishop e4, bishop g5. So here, I guess you don't have that many options anymore. You know, I've had some people play g3. I'm usually playing black here. Yeah. For me, g3 is kind of the twilight zone. This is interesting, bishop a6. Probably a nice aggressive way for black to try to play. So bishop g5, I've always been very comfortable playing this for black. I don't think I've ever lost a game in this line. Ironically. h6, bishop h4, I've never lost with black. g5, bishop g3, knight e4, queen c2, bishop b7, e3. Now, if you play d6 right away, a little kid who plays on my team had a game against an old man. I remember the little kid had white in this position, I think, and his opponent played d6. This is weird, you know, you're thinking, oh, hey, queen a4 check. But it's funny that this doesn't look so clear. They had a game that was something like this. And I was like, huh? This isn't good. You know, you don't benefit from playing. So that's a kind of funny move. Like black could actually play d6. And there's nothing wrong with it, you know. I mean, maybe that's actually a more accurate move order for black. If queen a4 check is not really a threat. Because a lot of people automatically play bishop takes c3. But it's a good question, you know. I don't really want to make that exchange until I have to. Can you go queen b3? Well, you can go queen b3. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a move, but it doesn't have... Well, okay. I mean, that's a good question. I had a kind of funny game last week, similar to that. I think I played something like a5 in this type of position. Queen b3 is interesting. I don't know. You know, I suppose it's a move. This is the main line, and then Save a Dog makes a horrifying move here. Bishop takes e4. There's a ton of theory in this position. I'm trying to remember if I just have one game. I beat my friend Jose Gonzalez Garcia with black in this line. But I definitely have more than one game. It's just been a while. But he's the only really strong player who I played with black here. I don't like it for white particularly. D5 this is all the theory, and there's all different moves here for black. I like this the best, knight d7, but I don't know. It goes back to 92, even earlier. There's just tons of theory. So you should know something about this. Save Dog. You probably shouldn't be playing such a variation without some knowledge. This doesn't look good. You got opposite colored bishop situation here now, where it's just this bishop is much stronger than this bishop, and I think the weaknesses are very significant for white on the white squares. You know, where black's dark squares aren't that big a problem. Black's pawns are doing a pretty good job of controlling the dark squares, e5 in particular. You know, so the diagonal looks really dangerous. You just cannot do this. You said the opening book suggests d5. Yeah. Well, if you don't know the theory, I mean, it's very hard to find the move d5. Obviously. I think I had a game once where my opponent castled here. Boylston Chess Club. I was playing someone who was like 2100. 2200. I don't remember. This is not that bad, probably. Although you have to be careful of h5, I suppose. Let's see what happens here. Now apparently d5 is still an idea. Wow. Wow. So d5, h4. Check this out. And then bishop e4. So you cut it off. If hg, fg, pawn takes e4, queen e4. Piece sacrifice. Totally insane. Thanks for the donation, Jim. But yeah, I mean, if you don't know the theory of this line, yeah, I mean, it's what are you gonna play? I guess once you've played bishop d3, you're kind of committed now, because knight d2 drops a pawn. I don't know how many times people have dropped this pawn against me. Probably 10 times. I've had blitz games where they did this. Something like knight takes. Maybe bishop f3, and white is just paralyzed. A million times. So, this is just bad. Can you make a game out of this? Trying to get some white square control. Ugh. Yeah, I mean, I would never castle kingside in this position. Never say never. I don't like to castle kingside. I like to castle queenside or leave my king in the center. This is such a good position for black, though. It's ridiculous. Yeah, f3 is good. So Save Dog started putting pawns on white squares, you know, and then that means that he starts to have like a semblance of control over the white squares. The whole point was that the white squares were bad. And now he's getting back in the game with h3 and f3. e5's good. Nimzovich. Totally Nimzovichian setup for black. Queen d3 now. Just fighting for control of e4, but how are you going to maintain that? I mean, he's coming with rook e8, and he's going to play e4 anyway. So this is a tough position for white. I really don't know what to suggest at this point. I mean, this just looks ugly. Very tough position for white to play. Maybe just like d5. Just to try to blot out the bishop on b7. I don't like it, but I seriously, I hate white's position. I don't know what to suggest here. If only you could play e4. Like the computer's suggesting bishop f2. I think it wants to play e4 or something. Here you're actually, okay, you're also promoting e4. Okay, I guess that's your idea. It's not a bad plan. Yeah, this is a good plan, dude. Okay, I got you. Okay, I understand. Rook e8, e4. Good job. That's a good plan. Your best chance to play e4. So you've constructed the pawns on the white squares. Yeah, to guard d4. Yeah. From a very bad position, you're still hanging in there. And now I start thinking about evacuations. See, if black hadn't castled kingside, he could be rolling you now. I mean, if his king is on c8 in this position, he's 2 moves away from a crushing pawn storm. Now he's got to be a little bit careful, although I think he can still probably do it, like rook f7 and just, you know, go. Rook e7 and then a4. And this is obviously very slow. Just the pawn storm. He plays this. And you should be familiar with this idea of playing c5. It's the only break. I'm cheating, look at the engine here, but I mean, it's the only break. If you play d5, it's closed. So this is a common idea in a slime, actually. No, but this is a pretty significant counterplay. This is really, especially once he plays a5. If he doesn't play a5, the c5 break isn't quite as strong. But that's the drawback. Of course, he's not like castled queenside. If black were castled queenside, this is far more dangerous, you know. But after a5, c5, you mean like, yeah, the b file, the c4 square. You know, it's okay to sacrifice a pawn. Plus, if it's ops color bishops, it's okay to sacrifice pawns. You're in the game now. All right, so he plays a5 and you played this, which is setting up c5. I wonder if black should just play bishop a6. That's what he did. Yeah. Yeah, so you missed your opportunity to play c5. Don't worry about sacrificing a pawn. This was a mistake, and now this. And now you're frozen. So now you have to reposition everything. And if I'm white, I was seriously thinking about bailing out, you know, try to run away, because the pawn storm is coming. The storm clouds are on the horizon and the pawn storm is coming. So, you know, this is the stage you want to start thinking about evacuations at this point, like getting out of there before the pawn storm comes. Ideally, like the white king is probably safest on like b2 or something, you know. Rook d1. This is good, probably. And there it comes. And yeah, evacuation, exactly. It may be too late, you know, I'm not sure. Wow. Wow, what a move, d5. What a move. So can you take on d5 and play knight e4? So there's just nasty things happening, like ed5, ed4, knight e4, knight e5 or something. I mean, there's some really scary stuff going on. Well, you can't play knight e5. What's going on here? ed4, knight e4. And the computer says queen f7. Whoops, not that. Knight e4, queen f7. Yeah, you try to run away. Well, bishop d4. The engine just has crushing moves, c5. Look at that. The skewer against the queen on d3, the king on e2. See how sharp it is? Because it's ops-colored bishops, what's going on in this position? How sharp the play becomes when it's ops-colored bishops and heavy pieces on the board. It's just it's a total mess. Wow. So black just has the better of it. I mean, I thought you were doing the right thing by evacuating. But you know what? Like, maybe you should have closed it a little bit first with like d5. In retrospect, maybe you need to do this, you know, to play d5 and lock it up and then try to run away, you know, once it's closed up. What if you do it this way? I mean, obviously black is better. He could go to the g file, invade down the g file, but maybe a better chance. Maybe a better chances of surviving if you close it first. Doesn't look good. That was a brilliant move by black, though. I mean, d5. This is a seriously brilliant move. Now you try to go back. Waffleini. Caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place here, huh? Can't decide which way to go. You know, I'm not taking that pawn. That's for sure. So obviously queen e6 wins immediately if you play knight takes c4. So you're lucky to have that pawn even blocking his bishop at this point. Now, that might be a serious mistake for black, actually. He should probably, yeah, this is a serious mistake. I mean, after d takes c4, you know, the position's kind of closed, actually. You know, you don't have to recapture on c4. He should have taken here. Because that, you can't just ignore that. You know what I mean? Like, you can ignore this. You can't ignore this, capturing your central pawn. So that was a massive mistake by black, taking this way. He wants to keep his bishop open, actually. Now, maybe the queen exchange is a mistake. I don't know. I mean, it's natural to want to try to trade queens. Let's see. I mean, it does seem like you're almost getting mated or whatever. You want to try to trade queens. What's going on here? We've got 5 pawns against 6. Opposite-colored bishops. Knight coming here. Possible d6. You have d6 if his knight moves away. It doesn't look that easy. It doesn't look that easy. Here, here, here. And now you have d6 possibly, or bishop d4. Rook b5, okay. 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 And suddenly we have some coordination going on. We got a good knight, this is activated, your rook is active, you know. There is a little problem, black has a lot of pawns on the queen side. It looks like you got something going on here. I mean, knight g5 threatening knight h7 check. You know, this might even, you've got double threats of knight e6 and this. This looks pretty invasive. Apparently you're losing. It's nothing. Bishop d5, knight h7 check. He could just walk away. Wow. Man. I thought you had something. Apparently you have better though. I mean, we can't protect that. Could you ever have played d6 at some point? Was that ever a move to play d6? Computer found bishop d8, going for his pawn chain. That's hard to find. d6 is also a move. I would have been looking for this. John Koss. So crazy position. This is the break I wanted. I'm not sure if it's good enough, but it's something. Let's see what you did. You said you had no time pressure, king f2, rook g1, check, king f8, rook g. So you played rook g6. But if once he takes this pawn, it's kind of over, right? I mean, there's no more tricks. There's no more way to break his pawns. So this is essentially like your last chance to mess with him, to really make your pawns great again. What's left of them anyway? You've still got 5. You might as well make them count. Rook g6, and it's like it's gone. No more breaking his structure after that. Like there is still that idea, bishop d8 though. I mean, is there an actual thing here like bishop d8, bishop e4, pawn e4, rook c5? His pawns look weak too. These pawns don't look great. But obviously, if you got the base of his pawn chain on c7, he would be unhappy about that, you know. It's a hard move to see though. Bishop d8. That was computer. It just doesn't look like you're really threatening anything at the moment. Your rook got enveloped. Oof. Wow. That's sick. Your own rook got enveloped on h6. What other games do I play? I played a lot of poker for 10 years. And baseball. That's not a game I play as an adult, but... And video games, but I'm not a gamer really. You know, I did play video games off and on all my life, and since I was a kid, you know, on the computer. And bowling. I like to injure myself while bowling. All right, so that's sick. King g7 resigns. You got to get the hang of this variation, man. I mean, this is not an easy system to play. I don't really like it. I don't really like the bishop g5 line. As I said, I've always liked playing black in this variation, and I don't think I've ever lost a single game. I will be playing black in the Hungarian Team Championship in 2 weeks. I hope it's not like this line, because that would be weird. Alright guys, we have, I don't want to jinx myself. We have 25 minutes left. I've got slow hand, no, acerbate, slow hand, move 11. We'll do as many as we can in Uber. PSG and somewhat, but I've only got 25 minutes left, guys, so we got to go after that. I got till about 10 minutes after the hour to do games. Been moving along. Yeah, I haven't played any live poker since, well, cash games with friends, but we have like a live game in Budapest. But I used to play in tournaments in Europe. I haven't played since like December 2017, really anything major. Let's see. Slow hand, what's up? Mr. Slowhand with a nice donation today, 1,500. Nice display of attacking chess I showed at a team match last year. Normally I have a hard time to convert my advantages to win, but in this game I played almost perfect. Was never in doubt. So, okay, this is cool. The other guy is black. Let's go through this. E6, A6, Con Sicilian. So you played C4. I think it takes a special kind of player, Mr. Slowhand, to play C4. I never really got into backgammon, sadly, because I I was around a lot of people who played backgammon, and I actually spent a lot of time in a place where there were a lot of good backgammon players, but I never really spent the time to try to pick it up, unfortunately. C4, knight c6, knight c3, queen c7. I mean, I prefer the other lines for white, like after a6, bishop d3, and knight c3. More like traditional. I think this Marazzi type of approach, it's fine, but I would say it's kind of hard to play. You know, it takes a very strong and very mature kind of Karpovian style to play these sort of Marazzis. I mean, not easy to play. So knight c6, knight c3, queen c7. I mean, you can't castle queenside. A lot of people like to play aggressively against the Sicilian, so you're never going to get a castle queenside type of line. Bishop e2, knight f6, castles. So this, apparently. So, isn't this like Portish? No, I'm thinking of a different line where white plays knight a4, but that's a different system. Yeah, I don't know what this is. I'm thinking of the lines with the pawn play a different position where white would play like knight a4. White would need the bishop on e3 here to play knight a4. Yeah, so I've seen this before. I don't know it. Bishop e7. Bishop e3. Castles. I mean, to me this seems kind of passive for black, though. Not a great... now it's a little bit passive. Not a great Marazzi, really. It's like a Scheveningen where white has played c4. And generally speaking, if you get in rook c1, you have a good game, which is not what you did here. I think you should do this first. Basically, you're threatening knight d5. This is standard positional threat. Can you ask me a question? As long as you're not trolling me. All right. Okay, so yes, Scheveningen with c4. It's a Marazzi. I mean, it's just a good Scheveningen in a way. Let's see, f4. So this is sort of weird. These Hungarian guys, I know. I think a first priority is not to allow any counterplay for black in this type of position. I mean, f4 is a normal move with the pawn back on c2. You've got a standard Scheveningen. You know, if you had a4 instead of c4, then f4 is a normal Scheveningen, right? But when you play f4 here, it kind of feels like you're asking for a lot. You're playing like a Scheveningen and you're playing the Marazzi. It's like you're playing two things at the same time. You know what I mean? You're mixing systems in a way. I mean, if black were to play irrelevant moves or something like king h8, then I guess f4 would be good. But the first priority is to eliminate any sort of counterplay. And this is nasty because like now d6, knight d5, I would think, is just better for white. You know, this... Maybe Spinal Tap Chess would say, oh, it's nothing. You can just take it and play queen a5. Remember I had a game on my stream where I did that, but it's not so easy here. Yeah, this is better for white. This is just a bad structure. Just a bad structure for black. You got to give the piece back. So you're 26, you're actually 1100 elo. It's too late for me to get better at chess. You study chess consistently as possible to reach 2000. Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, it's got to be. I know that there's like people who become GMs that didn't learn till they were like 20. So I can't, at least one case of that, I can't believe that, you know, of course you can get to 2000. I mean, if it would be different if you were like 50 and asking me that question, I guess, you know, still you would be able to get a lot better. I don't know about 2000 or what to say, but I I mean, you're 26, you're still really young. All right. It feels like you're old at the time, but here, f4. All right, so rook c1 just transposes, and now you're threatening knight d5. Although f4 is more of a time-consuming move and weakening white a little bit. So Almaty versus Iberdatum in 1995. That was before I went to Hungary for the first time, 1996. Rook d8, but I played both of these guys. Black's just a little bit passive here. I don't really love rook d8, but I don't really like black's position. It seems like somehow white got away with something. In a normal Scheveningen, black would play e5 here. But he's got a Scheveningen where white's c-pawn magically jumped up the board to c4. This seems to benefit white now. You're playing like it's normal setup. And you played c4 instead of a4. Yeah, I mean, knight e8 is kind of passive, but he has to do something. So I guess black is concerned about rook f7. There is really not a lot to do. And then it's just over here. So it's lost for black. I mean, I don't like black's setup to begin with, but it feels like at this point, I mean, even rook d8 to me isn't my favorite. He played here rook d8. Well, there's no really strong players that have played this with black. These sort of like average players, but at this point, black's disadvantage is like already like one pawn, according to the engine. It's just not a very good position. The c-pawn just magically jumped over the knight and secured your center, like your central advantage. But when you played f4, actually the engine likes this move. There's most people that have played rook c1. I guess it doesn't matter, like they're both good. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Just not a good setup for black. So the moral of the story is that bishop e7 is just too passive. He has to play more actively here with the bishop e4. So this is a line. Knight takes c6, d takes c6, and then black should have sufficient counterplay, I guess, on the dark squares. Okay, so the endgame, I'm assuming this is just good for white, the end of the game. Castles, you have a huge advantage in the game. Very standard. I mean, knight e8 seemed passive, king h8, there's nothing he can do. This just wins by force. If you takes with the bishop, you're gonna lose. He's gonna lose f7. So he's just losing in exchange. And this is an amazing move, dude. Bishop g4. Wow. I mean, I would not have even seen that, honestly. I would not have ever even seen this move. I mean, I'm just taking this exchange here with knight b6. See you later. That's good enough for me, you know. I mean, this is pretty insane. Bishop g4. Nice. Wow, I mean, barreling down on f7. Now, rook f4. Once again, like, I don't understand why you're not just taking the exchange here. Am I just a materialistic kind of guy or what? I would just take that exchange. Rook f4. My god, dude. That's actually one of the computer's suggestions. I don't know how you came up with that. I would just have to settle for the mere knight b6 here as an average international master. I'm gonna just grab that rook, you know. this is a crazy move, rook f4. It wouldn't have entered my mind, you know, but I guess we're just piling up here pieces. If you're thinking about attacking the king, I'm just trying to practically win the game, you know, and I think it's easier to play rook f4 and just cash in, you know, and win that way. But this is pretty strong, brute force. Impressive pieces for white. So this is funny at this point. I mean, I would at least try moving my rook. I'm not sure what happens on that. But now it's materially over. At the end of the day, you ended up like winning winning an exchange and 2 pieces for the queen or whatever. But it's just, yeah, a nice game by white. But basically, black's playing a black side of a Marazzi, a bad Marazzi, a Scheveningen Marazzi sort of hybrid, not great. He's got to be more accurate in the opening because c4 is not supposed to be that great for white. It's a line, but black should have enough counterplay against this. All right, so guys, we got time for one game, one more game. Where am I? Move 11. Move 11 said, hey, can we take a look at a game on a stream? Korchnoi Beliavsky, 1994. Move 11's playing in the tournament this weekend. Wish him good luck. Korchnoi Beliavsky, which side do you want? I like both these guys. We'll take the side who won, I guess. I mean, I like both these guys as players. Korchnoi wasn't a very nice person. I have friends with Grandmaster Mikhail Chisin, and once we spent a car ride talking about Korchnoi. I've seen he was very nasty to a lot of people, but all right, we will check out Beliavsky playing black here against Korchnoi. c4, c6, d4, d5, e3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight f3, knight on bd7. So it's a standard opening. Queen c2, bishop d6. You know, normally you get like bishop d3. This is called a Marin. Queen c2 is like a modern take where we're not letting black take on c4. It's a totally standard move. We're not key. It's one of the main lines in this opening. It's the only move that like develops actively without allowing d takes c4 with tempo. One of the favorite variations for white is like Aronjan's g4. I mean, I don't know who first invented this. I guess Shirov. I mean, I don't know who to. We'll credit Shirov with it, I guess. I don't remember who first played it. I shouldn't credit Aronjan, but he did play it as well. I mean, g4, you know, it's gone out of fashion. One of the more aggressive ways to play here. This has gone out of fashion. It was extensively popular in the 90s, even early 2000s. But white instead played what? This is an old game, I assume. It was from 1994. That's probably about the time when that was invented. G4 was invented. Korchnoi plays b3. Karpov also played like this with white. The idea is, and I have too by transposition, but the idea is to take back with the pawn on c4. It changes the dynamics. So now we don't have to take back with the bishop on c4. We take back with the pawn. Castles, bishop b2, e5, cd, cd, de5, knight e5. So you see the problem for white here is that the king is still in the center of the board. There are some dangerous situations in these type of lines. Shabalov was, you know, Shirov's cohort, so I guess those guys worked out the g4 thing. I don't know who actually gets credit for it. But it's gone by the wayside, I guess, today. Not really seen any g4 games lately. I guess it's all been worked out that it's okay for black. But this is more of a stable variation. Just that white has to be really careful about his king, because this king is safe on g8 and the white king is still sort of out in the middle of the board. So bishop e2, knight f3. I might have seen this game before, I don't remember. Bishop f3, and then here Victor plays an interesting move. I'm sorry, Belyavsky. d4. See, that's what I'm talking about. The king is not safe in the center of the board. So this actually was repeated later in 2000, as late as 2011. Sarawan, Spielman. A few games here and there. I'm not on the stream. I hope I'm on the stream. I don't know what that means, but so d4. Just opening up the king, man. E takes d4, rook e8 check. I mean, Korchnoi was kind of both these players were willing to take chances. Korchnoi loved to take material, so winning a pawn here is something he was willing to do. Not afraid to grab a pawn. He had no real choice though on d4. What is the guy talking about? So queen a5. Guys, we got to go in like 5 minutes. Just to let you guys know, but queen a5. Presumably this was worked out early computer era, 1994. You know, a lot of people who are younger don't realize that like there were chess engines as far back as like 1994. I remember ChessBase being around in the early 90s and the earliest versions of Fritz. So you could still even back in this time, you know, there's still some kind of not really advanced, but some computer analysis. They could have worked this out at home. It looks like queen a5 is still considered a good move today. This threatens bishop f5. That seems to be like one of the main points we can develop quickly. Wow. This is moving the same piece twice. And notice that, let's see, bishop f5 was played in a more recent game, and black actually went on to lose. Two grandmasters played a game in 2010. White was able to play g4, gain time on the bishop on f5, and secure a square for his king on g2. But even a 2300 engine, you know, 94, a little stronger than that. It was a little stronger than that, even then. It was stronger, more like, probably like 2450, I would say, you know. But g4, it looks like a good move. So maybe this is really important. White will play rook c1, and then very calm play by black. You know, everything's in the game. White is down a rook. Essentially, the white king isn't safe. But it looks like home prep, you know. It really looks like Belyavsky had this all worked out going into the game, you know, well beforehand, even back in that date. But white is having a hard time finding a move in this position, I would think. He's playing a3. And then you'd think like black would want to keep the pieces on the board, you know, keep attacking chances with the bishop pair, keep all the pieces on the board, maximize his attacking chances. He trades on c3. That seems like a concession, but then I guess the point is time. Time is money. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the black pieces are going to play very quickly here. There's queen a6 check. It's all in the white squares. So rook takes c3. I was expecting like, I don't know, queen a6 check here. But Belyansky just plays knight to d5. I mean, I don't think that they're still in preparation here. I don't know, but I'm curious what the engine says. Wow. So he missed a forced win with knight e4, but that's a modern computer. I mean, it doesn't look that obvious. Knight e4, very invasive piece. Almost certainly Belyansky looked at it, especially if his book move was, or the move he played was knight d5. But, you know, presumably you're thinking, okay, white survives here. What's the big deal? It looks like he's surviving, but he's getting bishop b5 checked. So I would presume king g1 now. Man, he just gets on the 7th and it's over. And this is like kind of what I was talking about in one of the previous games. When I talk about ops-colored bishop positions, that's the thing. That's the thing when it's ops-colored bishops with heavy pieces. Think a lot. Think about all you got. This ops-colored bishops, man. It's just like you've got an extra piece. Essentially, this bishop on b2 is irrelevant. So that's a nice line. Belyansky didn't find it. He played knight d5. This is good, but it's not as good as knight e4. Now he's threatening the same basic thing, though. Bishop e5 check and rook e2, which is like over. This was the actual game. Stopping bishop b5. And then it's like here. So it's just like pieces in play, you know, 4 pieces in play against 3 pieces. It's like this, just really clear, you know. We're just outnumbering you with pieces. It's just easy, you know. It's really deep, simple yet deep. And Belyansky has 3 pieces, and White has 2 pieces, and everyone lived happily after, you know, happily ever after, and it's over. It's just over. I mean, he's just essentially a piece up in this position, looks like. Fortunately tries to defend. Finally, his rook is getting in the game. So he's close to getting back in the game. It looks like Black actually missed better moves to let him survive to this endgame. And look at that. He's alive. It's not good for White, but he's still alive because he actually has a rook for the first time. Acerbate. Am I going to do your game? I didn't do your game? Alright. Anyway, this is a clear advantage to Black. I forgot about Acerbate's game. Thanks for submitting that. That's a really instructive game. Black had a huge advantage. Acerbate, I skipped your game, dude. Why didn't you say something before? We skipped Acerbate. Where is it, man? I gotta go. There it is. Is it this? Alright, man. Thanks for reminding me before it's too late. I've gotta go. Alright, this is Acerbate's game with White. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4. His favorite opening. Sorry to the other guys. Try to get him in sooner next time. Gotta go after this. F6. Wow, this is horrible. F6. D4 Acerbate. Be direct, man. Don't mess around with C3. Okay, it's still a good move, but D4 it's a bit more direct. Then you've got the classic Queen B3. You didn't pull the trigger, although I like the developing move. Nothing wrong with castling. I think you should think about this immediately. Is Knight A5 a problem? This is probably an issue. Alright, so castle. You're ready to blast him with D4. Do I do lessons for kids? I do lessons for kids, but I hate their parents. Alright, D4. E takes d4, C takes d4. I'm just kidding. I've had a lot of lessons with kids over the years, but usually parents tend to be a little bit difficult to work with. I do more adult lessons, but if the kids are old enough, you know, like online lessons are plausible. You know, I don't really do lessons with like little kids. It's just too difficult to work with them, with their parents, stuff like that. It's easier in real life. I used to do a lot of lessons with kids, but online it's a little trickier. Parents always want to get over involved. All right, so castles here, a6, d4, e takes d4, c takes d4. This is just like overwhelming. Thank you, John. That's very kind of you to say. Way to market your lessons. Thank you. I'm here for marketing, Bob. That's my goal in life, is marketing. I'm just here for the chess, man. I'm not here for marketing. So black should play bishop a7, but anyway, he's getting crushed. There's no game. It's just over. I mean, this is fundamental. Knight h4, threatening mate, a mating attack type of thing here. Actually, you know, it could be mate if black isn't careful. This is a good game, very fundamental. This reminds me of a famous book, you know, The Art of the Checkmate by Kahn and Renaud. This old Dover book. Asterbate has kind of got the classical style stuff going on here, but this d4 is hanging, and if you don't have something now, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, knight h4 looked like the right idea, maybe, but you should probably, you could just blast through with d5, d6. Another idea here. You could just shatter his pawn structure with something like that, like a positional pawn sacrifice. Computer doesn't like knight h4 that much. I think it's still good. You can play queen h5 check, probably. Sack a pawn. Very materialistic by black. Okay, so it looks like he can take you and then play king f8. Or even, yeah, that's about the only option. The best move was bishop takes f2 check. Wow, what's wrong with this? Knight f2, pawn f2, king f8. Are you seriously going to mate him with queen h5? Wow. Does this work? Oh, man. I thought that he could play takes and king f8. I'm surprised this didn't happen, but he's actually getting mated on f7 in all variations. That's nasty. That's really nasty. So Bob has a crush on some chess streamers. You gotta just forgive him. He can't separate his, you know, physical desires with reality sometimes. You can't separate fantasy from reality. Knight f5. We're gonna get to this here. So what happens now? Knight f5, black, man, he couldn't take. That's amazing, dude. So that's all based on this. Knight takes, pawn takes, and then you either win his bishop or you get queen h5 with the mate there. And the nicest variation is king f8, queen h5, d5, bishop d5, you know, because you just can't stop the mate in all lines. I don't understand the lumberjack joke. This is not a, it's not a plaid, you know, not a traditional lumberjack plaid shirt, but we'll roll with it. All right, so let's check out what he did here. I gotta go, guys. Time to go, but knight f5, cool move, bishop e6, knight g7 check, and it's just gruesome. Bishop h6, obviously very close to mate. Knight f5, knight here, and then mate. That's pretty vicious. Great game, Asterbate. We will see you guys later. Thanks for joining me. Stream tomorrow, Friday. It'll be usual time, 5:30. We're gonna play Blitz 5+3 challenges. Thanks everybody for subscribing and tuning in. Thanks, Mr. Coffee and JCS. Thanks for your subscriptions, guys. Thanks for submitting the games. I gotta go. It's been fun. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, guys. Take care.